Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for part one of this two-part webinar on our asset management application. We're happy to have you join us and go over this. Just a few items that I do want to discuss regarding the webinar for those of you who haven't joined us yet already for a webinar. There are going to be some Q&A available if you are joining on the application. You will see a Q&A at the top bar, and we can take any questions and answers from that. You are muted and your cameras will be off during the duration of this. If you are joining from the browser and the Teams browser, you may not have that Q&A feature. And that's fine. Please feel free to go ahead and email me at jenniferw@miroms.com, and I'll be happy to take your questions there and we can answer them either during the webinar or after the webinar. Always happy to hear your feedback as well, so please feel free to send me an email at any time. Okay, that being said, this will also be available via recording, and that recording will be sent out in the next week. And you'll have that available to rewatch so that it can guide you through this application. Miriam would like to introduce some functionality and the actual application, and I'll let her take the introduction to this application on.
Wonderful, thank you, and hello everyone. I just wanted to say a few things about this app. The asset management app basically is the name of the app, and it encompasses many different areas which in the past were separate and still are to some extent. But let me explain first the purpose of the asset portion of this app. So the purpose is really for you to have a place to keep all your company assets. And those can be, for example, IT items. So if you are, like in our case, we're a service company, we're certified to 27001, all our computers, servers, printers, routers, we have them in this list, and it serves the purposes of our ISO audit 27001. But you may also keep all your machines, such as grinders, rollers, stampers, crane, compressors, boilers. All of that can be kept. And of course, once you have them there, then you can assign preventive maintenance, conduct repairs, and do update the usage of it. You can also keep in the asset management app all your precision equipment, also known as your tools or your TMMDE for testing, measuring, monitoring, and detection equipment. Such as balances, scales, thermometer, rulers, tapes, calipers, multimeters, thermocouples, etc. Right, so all of that can be there, and you can conduct calibration from the app. And you can also have there your vehicles, whether they are trucks, forklifts, boats, planes, vessels, ships, anything also that move, you can also keep them in there. So the asset management app is very vast. And of course, then we have separated other functionality, which is the calibration, preventive maintenance, repair, and usage. So today, of course, we're just talking about the asset portion of this app as well as the calibration. Now, future improvements will be to perhaps allow you to separate the different functions into separate pages, or to maybe have the ability to have your favorite landing page. So if you just have to deal with calibration, then maybe that's all you're gonna have, or at least that will be your landing page. So there will be a lot more improvements to come. So turn it back to you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. Now we'll go ahead and get started with the webinar, and Stacy Ward will be taking us through this application.
All right, so here we are. Most everybody here knows me, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get started here with our asset management app. I want to thank everybody for joining today. And as Jennifer mentioned, send over any questions as we're going through this, and or afterwards, any questions that you come up with, and we'll go ahead and get those answered for you. But let's get started. I'm going to shut my camera down now that I've said hello, and walk you guys through the asset management app. So here we go. The asset management app will be found on your operations tab. It looks like this here, asset management. When you navigate there, you're going to come to the main landing page, which I was already on. And when you come to this landing page, it's laid out like a lot of our other new applications. So you'll see some functions over here for the settings, my tasks, reports, KPIs, and how you add your assets. You've got your list of assets here on the landing page as well. And we're going to start off by looking at the settings for this application before we get started on how to add assets and calibration and all that good stuff. So let's look at some of the things that we can configure with this application by navigating here to the settings area first. When you come into the settings area, there's going to be multiple tabs as in many of our other settings. If you are a Web QMS admin or an admin for this application, either assets or calibration or PM, which is going to be another training repair, you will have access to the settings area for the specific area that you are an admin for, if that makes sense. So that's who's going to have access to come in here and change these. On your assets tab, you're going to be able to configure things related to entering assets and maintaining your assets. The first thing here is for an ID. Every asset is going to need a unique ID. You can enter your own. If you guys already have your assets numbered somehow with unique IDs, you can use those numbers. If you want it to be auto-generated by the system, maybe you don't have them numbered, you would turn this on to enable your automatic ID. I'm going to leave it off for the demo just so the field will be there so you can see what it looks like. If you want it to auto-generate, you'll want to have that off in your settings, or have it, yes, off. If you don't want them auto-generated. Here is where you can set a specific prefix. We have it just at A and a starting number. We're on our sandbox, which is our testing site, so they put it at 17. But generally, you would have that probably as a 1, but you could change this letter to something else, whatever kind of a prefix you want there, and that's how your numbering scheme is going to go. It will add the preceding zeros there, so this is A00017 as a starting point. You've got some form fields option is what this section is called. This is for turning on and off some of the fields when you enter an asset. Date acquired, date built, description, all these ones that you see here, purchase price. You may not want to use those. So you have the ability to show or hide them. You also have the ability to make them required or not required with these little edit pencils over here. So maybe you don't want to track price, or maybe you don't care about the date it was built, only when it was acquired. You know, turn them off if you do not want to use those. And again, make them required or not required. You may want to require a description for every asset entered, so you can make that a required field there. Your asset types. So these are the general categories that your assets may fall under. We did have this on the old maintenance or the previous maintenance application and calibration. So you may have air compressors, air hoists. This is where you're now going to add, delete, edit these asset types. It used to be over in Web QMS settings, but now it's going to be here for this application. With these asset types, you can also enter some default information, because when you're entering stuff for calibration, you may have a range from and to, you may have to enter an accuracy, and even an average cost. What you can do here is set defaults for those. So every time you add a boiler or every time you add a caliper, it's going to populate with something. Now, if you need to change it, you can over on that screen. But if you want it to at least come up with something, because maybe you enter a lot of the same type of caliper, you can set those. You can also, okay, not yet. We're going to add the ability to turn those off. If you don't want to use range and accuracy, we're also going to have the ability to completely turn them off. And I think they're currently required. So we will have the ability to make them not required, because you may want to use them sometimes, but not all the time. So just a little bit about that's how the asset types work. And you have the ability to put in some defaults there for those ranges and accuracies and costs. Default ownership. This is where we're just setting defaults for some of the fields. You're going to have the field there because you have to specify who an asset is owned by. Is it owned by company, employee, or customer? So if you just want to set a default, maybe the majority of everything is going to be owned by the company. So let's set the default to company. So you only need to change it when it doesn't fall as company ownership. Default asset status. Most of the stuff you're going to be adding manually is probably in service. But if it's not, you can change it. So you may want that default to be set at in service for that field, just to save you a little time. Under that is your list of manufacturers. Before, these were also in Web QMS settings area. They're now going to be listed here. So just the list of manufacturers for your assets you are entering. Again, you can delete or edit. It's that simple if you need to edit something. If you need to add, the add is at the bottom, like the other tables there, so you can easily do that. Before, you could add, when you're entering your asset, manufacturer 1 and manufacturer 2, you can still add multiple within a field now. So you'll be able to add more than one manufacturer to a piece of equipment if it does have components that come from different manufacturers. We'll see that when we do the example. Asset areas. These are basically like the PM areas is what we called them before. If you have an asset, maybe it's a vehicle or something large and it has different areas, like you want to specify the exhaust and cooling system on some big piece of equipment and specify down into areas and use those asset areas. This is where you can add your asset areas, with the button, or edit or delete any of them. History log options. Okay, so this is new. What this is, it's almost kind of like an audit log of changes that are made to your assets. So say, okay, this will track anybody that comes in and edits the asset status. It'll keep a date and timestamp of who did it. But it lists a lot of things here that you can have tracked. Editing the asset details other than status, editing addition of sub-assets, configuration changes, like who's doing these edits, and these type of things. You can turn off and on what you want to track here. There are a few that are always going to be tracked. You can lightly see them in gray and they do not have an edit pencil. These are always going to be tracked by the system regardless if you turn them on or off. And these other ones will be configurable. If you say, no, we don't need to worry about that, you can turn them on or off. But it's just a historical log so you know what happens and when it happened to an asset. Your asset statuses. So here we have in calibration, in repair, in service, and out of service. If you call those different things at your organization, or maybe you don't want to set something in calibration, you will use these, for instance, if your asset, well, of course, when it's in service or out of service, that's pretty self-explanatory. But if you send it out for repair, maybe you want to change the status to in repair. But again, maybe you call it something different so you can edit those labels. If it's sent out for calibration or set aside, your own calibration tech maybe is in-house and maybe it's set aside for that, you can mark things in calibration. Or if you never will, you can get rid of that and say, no, our calibrations are done super quick. We don't ever need to change status. So those are just little configurations that you can make there in the settings area for your assets. We're going to move over to sub-assets quickly. Most organizations do not use sub-assets, but you have the ability to track what we call sub-assets. So if you have an asset, kind of like a parent asset that needs any sub-assets that are assigned to it, you can add those sub-assets. Now, if you don't use sub-assets, you would just turn this off. For the purpose of the demo, I will leave it on so you can kind of see how it works, but sub-assets is here. There are a few settings, kind of like the auto ID. So if you can give it your own ID or have it auto-generated, you can have sub-asset types if you want to assign those. That's really all there is for sub-assets. And again, if you just turn sub-assets off, you don't have to worry about that. That would be this button here. Switch it over to the other side and hit save, and then you won't be using sub-assets. Calibration settings, we'll look at those because we are covering calibration today. We do refer to calibration as TMMDE. If you want to say tool when you are talking about your asset within the calibration app, you can change this to tool or equipment. It's just a naming convention change. Some defaults for the calibration fields. There is going to be a screen that says, okay, is this a recurrent calibration or is this an each use? So you've got to pick one of those two options. This is which one do you want it to default to? Probably it's on a schedule. I'm thinking that's more common, so that you can set that for your default. If not, choose the other. Default when you're uploading a procedure or work instruction, do you want it to be an attachment or a link? There's two options. So these are just little, again, time savers. Which one is it going to default to? You can always change it when you're adding the asset. Default used as a calibration standard. Okay, if you don't do any in-house calibration, or if you don't have anything that is used as a calibration standard, you can turn the default to be it's not used as a standard. Or if you have a lot that is, you can turn it on. Default to is your calibration outsourced, yes or no. So you can set up all those configurations there. For those of you that pull a calibration procedure or work instruction or particular form, we are still kind of working on this, but you will have the option to set a category such as calibration. It may be your internal procedures or work instructions for calibration over in the master docs application or in a category called calibration. You will set that category where they are. So when you enter an asset, there's going to be a field that will have a drop down with your procedures from your master documents application for calibration. So again, we're still kind of working on that a little bit. Those of you that link those like that know what I'm talking about, but that's an option there, but you can set that category. Coming due threshold. When do you want your coming due threshold for like reporting and notifications? Do you want it 30 days in advance? Do you want it 60 days before the calibration or verification due date? You can set that there. This application now is going to encompass, if you have a calibration and it's found out of tolerance when you enter it, it used to go to the CIP application and automatically create a CIP for equipment out of tolerance. Now it's all going to be handled here. So if you do have equipment out of tolerance, it's going to say, you know, do you want to do nothing? Do you want to just have a couple have actions, or do you want to go through, you know, and submit an RCA with actions for that? So you're going to have those options. That's why it's asking you that here. So you've got RCA tools that'll be in the drop down, default notification number of days. On those due dates, similar to NCR when you're entering actions and RCA, there's a due date that will automatically populate there. You can always override it, but we kind of just have those set 7 and 15 days out. Again, change those to what works for your organization. On the reporting area, this is just for pagination. How many items do you want per page? They're set here for 50. You've got calibration coming due and calibration follow up on your reporting area. So once you have your settings set here, you can hit save. And that's really the only areas we're going to cover. Everything else is going to be on another training. Importing, leave that to us for now. It's really not something we have set up for users to do themselves or even admins yet. So of course, that's where we import your equipment and all kinds of other things, calibrations, preventive maintenance, so on and so forth. So that is settings in a nutshell for these applications. Now we will go through and look at adding an asset. So let's get started. Here is the add asset button. The only people that are going to be able to do this again, if you have the admin rights for the asset area of this application. If you don't have sub assets on, you're not going to have this little drop down. You'll just simply click here and add your asset. But because we have it on, that's why we see a little drop down. You'll just click add asset. And from here, everything is very simple. We're going to go ahead and get started. So we will give this a, let's see. I'm assigning it my own number here. Let me make it something a little bit easier. Let's do this. Okay, so this is going to be a, let's do a digital caliper. You'll enter your location. Also, you will enter a department here. We're just going to put this in the production department. Model number and serial number. So we'll enter something for those fields. Okay, and again, we have these tooltips on most fields that will pop up. Some of them are not fully populated yet, but for the most part, these will be tooltips that give you some additional information. Okay, here's where you can select your manufacturers. Okay, so this is that list we saw over in the web in the settings area for this app. One thing that's cool is now if you're an admin and your manufacturer is not in this list, you can go ahead instead of having to back out, lose your information, go to settings for this app and add your manufacturer. We have this quick add button. So say, okay, well, I want to add National Metallic and I don't see them here in this list. So I'm going to hit this add. There's that list that was over there and I can do it right now. And I'm going to add them, just say create. They'll be here. I can say done. When I come back over here now, there it is. So again, you can do multiple if you have more than one manufacturer for this piece of equipment, or you can just do one. So I think that's a super cool feature to be able to quick add that there. Enter your purchase price if you're doing that. For your dates built and acquired, we now have the option to have like a 3-digit date, a month and a year, or a year only. You don't always know the exact day maybe something was built or the exact day it was acquired, or maybe you don't even need to track that. So for example, we just want to put the year for this when it was built. And so you just pick a year and then you don't have to make up a day or make up a month. So for instance, for a month and a year, you can just do this and we'll say, okay, maybe this was September and we don't have to worry about picking a day there. For your manuals, of course, you can attach a manual by dragging and dropping if you have a manufacturer's manual, or if you want to just link to a website or some other URL. I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a manual in for this manufacturer here, or for this piece of equipment. I've got a digital caliper manual. Oops. So this does need to be on an attachment. If you are going to drag and drop an attachment, bring it over here into the box. You kind of see it highlight blue if you have your mouse right there within the rectangle. And there it is. So I'm attached now. Now, if you're going to use descriptions, it's always nice to have a description of this specific asset. So I'm going to go ahead and put one in there. This is a digital caliper, electronic linear capacitive measuring system with an LCD display with inch-millimeter conversion. You can add a picture. So I do have a picture that we will drag and drop over for this caliper. Again, you just drag it and drop it into the box there. Here's where you specify who it's owned by, company, employee, customer. Remember, you can set that to default where you want it. I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. It is owned by the company. Now, this last section here, active or inactive. This is not to be confused with your asset status. Something can be active or inactive, and if it's active, within that, where is it? Is it in service? Is it out of service? Is it in repair? Is it in calibration? So I'm adding this asset right now, so it's active. Tracking usage, this is going to be for another training, but it's like when you're checking something in and out or tracking hours or mileage against something. Tracking asset configuration changes, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. There will be an area on the asset detail if you want to track. These are configuration changes with the asset, not with these settings or not with the software. For instance, if you have a piece of equipment, I don't even really know, but if you make an adjustment to that equipment, maybe you need to adjust the handle so it can rotate 360 degrees because it wasn't like that. It's just an area to, track configuration changes to your equipment. So I'll show you that. I'll turn it on. Is this used as TMMDE? Yes, it is, because that's what we're showing you today. You can enter your check type here. Is it a calibration? Is it a verification, or is it none of the above? You can have it both. Maybe you calibrate it on some set schedule, but you need to verify it every so often as well in between calibrations. So you can have both of those checked if needed. We're not going to look at PM, but because this is on the asset page, I'll just explain, like we're having all of our assets in one place. So most things usually are going to need calibration or preventive maintenance. I don't know that there's a whole lot of things that need both, but possibly there are. So if you have an asset and it's going to need calibration and need preventive maintenance, you would turn it on so that the system knows, okay, this is going to go through, preventive maintenance entries. It's going to have calibration. Does this specific asset have sub-assets? Of course, if we're not using that, it's not going to ask you that. So you can either turn them on or off for this equipment. We're going to just leave it off for now. Asset status, again, we've kind of gone over those, so I'm going to leave that one in service. Now, because we are entering calibration stuff for this is going to be a two-page entry. Your indication is you have one, we're on the asset screen. There's going to be a calibration screen here. We need to say save and next to move on to page 2. If you save, you stay on the same page. If you save and exit, you go out, and then you can always come back and add your page 2 calibration information later. So I did hit save and next. Oh, I have an error. What did I leave out? Oh, okay. So it will tell you if your serial number maybe has already been used for something. It should also do the same if you're repeating an asset ID, because it does need to be unique for every piece of equipment. Okay. So here's where we list our schedule, our cycle for calibration, or we can mark it as each use. Again, we had a default set how often we are going to do this. So let's go ahead and just set this 12 months. That's common calibration time. Here's that range and accuracy. These defaulted into 0 and 1 inch because that was in there. We can easily change it if that does not apply for this that we're entering. So it's just got that. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the accuracy. Again, you can see that's required, but we're going to be adding the ability to turn that requirement off and even hiding these completely if you don't want to use them. Procedure or work instruction, again, you can either add a URL or add an attachment. We are adding that functionality to have a drop down for your own procedures there on this area, but it's not there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag in and attach a procedure. I think I've got one here, a calibration procedure. So I show you the drag and the drop there. Is this used as a standard? It's only going to ask you this if this is a calibration, if you mark calibration for check type, not for verification. So I'm going to go ahead and just say no for this one. It's not used as a standard. Is it outsourced? Yes, we have somebody else do this calibration. Your average cost, that was in that default area in the settings. Maybe the price has gone up, so you can override that there. I am going to, again, if you say save, it's going to stay here. So I've saved everything. You can go back and forth by using these at the top. So if I come in here later on, like in edit mode, I can always come back. I'm going to go ahead and turn on PM here. Just so when we look at the asset back, you'll see. And then there's that third page for preventive maintenance. So if we were going to go on and do that today, you would enter your calibration details. Okay, save and next. And then it's going to go on to entering some information about your preventive maintenance. So a little bit about that since it does fall in the asset area. Now that we've got our asset added, one other thing I wanted to point out, let me see if I can easily find where that guy showed up here. I tried to give it a simple number so I could find it again. It's this one here. You do have the ability to edit equipment. So let me show you that right quick. When I click on a specific piece of equipment, I'm in detail view and you have edit up here in the right corner. If I want to edit something, so here we are. This is the asset information. I don't know why that picture is in there twice. I can edit this, but I wanted to show you on page 2, we have all this information here. We're going to be adding a few things with the configuration of these settings. But one important thing, sometimes when you have a new asset or a tool or piece of equipment that you're adding in here, it's going to come with its own calibration cert right off the bat that may be good for a year or 2 years. We didn't really have a good way to add those per se before. So now there's going to be a question. Does this have a manufacturer cert? Did it come with a manufacturer cert? You can tick that to say yes, so you can immediately go ahead and get that initial cert entered here for the initial calibration and it will be tied to this, and it will follow over to the calibration area that you've got that initial manufacturer cert entered. So that'll be a neat little feature that we'll have added in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so coming back from the landing page, again, you can go and find your asset and click on it to see the detail view. So let's look at what we can see in the detail view here. We can see the asset number, that it's a digital caliper, that's the type, that it is in service and it is active. You've got your description there underneath. You've got tabs now because this app handles several areas. So we've got our basic asset details that we added on that page 1. We've got a tab for calibration. So this is where things specific to the calibration are going to be when we enter all that data on the page 2 of the asset entry. It's going to be here. As we start adding those calibrations, they're going to start stacking up here. You will see the preventive maintenance tab within the detail view as well. If you're using it, again, this isn't not what we're looking at today, but just to show you that it's there. And then if you're going to have repairs for this, they'll go here. And if you had that usage ticked on, you will have a usage tab as well. So coming back to the asset details, configuration changes. This is what I showed you in settings, and I'm just going to show you that it's here. You can add any configuration. It will open it up to see if there's anything there. So if you're using it and you're entering configuration changes, when you maximize it, they'll be here. There should be, you'll see the add button. And if you need to add any type of configuration, if you do something to that piece of equipment that you want to track the date, and it'll automatically, whoever's logged in, that's going to be the name that goes with it. That's why you don't see a name here. And your description of what you did. Again, you adjusted something on the piece of equipment to make it do something better or whatever you needed to do there. Just a configuration change, not a repair, not maintenance, nothing like that. So again, that's a setting you could turn off if you don't wish to use that. If you do, it's there. Your history logs are here minimized. So if you want to open up your history logs, you can see settings being changed, an edit to the asset itself with the date and who did it there. So that's where your history logs will show up. Okay, so how do we add calibration? Let me show you one more thing from the main landing page. When we are looking at the main landing page, because we didn't really go over this, when you come to asset management and you land here, this list is going to be your list of all assets, whether they're calibration, preventive maintenance. You have some filtering buttons for location or a specific asset type. Here is where you can filter this list of assets to see only a specific section. So if I only want to see my calibration assets, I'll click calibration. If I want to see my PM assets, I can click PM here. If I want to see repair information, I can click repair. Same with sub assets. So I'm going to click calibration and take us there so that we can see how that works. While that's working, similar to the other apps, we do have this column picker here. So you can have a setting to define what columns you want to see or not see here. Manufacturer, for instance, is off right now. If they're white and gray, you can't take them off. It's like you need to see your asset ID. You probably need to see some of these things, so they're not allowed per se to be turned off. But you do have some options. I think just about everything's on right now. And the same, the main landing page has the column picker. You'll have the column picker in every area. This is only available to the admins. They can do it just for themselves or for everybody. At the organization, you know, it'll change everybody's view. So you can set those there. Print, if you want to print what's on the screen, if you want to download what's on the screen, you can export it with that button here. And of course, the search box here will search the words on the page. So if you want to search for us, you put an asset type there to bring up those asset types. If you want to type verification there, it'll bring up anything with the word verification. Now, if you have verification, you know, anywhere else, it'll bring those records too. So this is your calibration view. And again, I wanted to bring up that piece of equipment we just did, AAA 015. I'm going to search that. This is the one. Now I'm on the calibration, so here is this. This screen is going to look a little bit different than what you have right now. A lot of you have noticed that you don't have a cal date, a due date, and a cert here. Let me go back before we search that up. The reason we didn't forget those, we we had them implemented. We also had a column for, oh, here it is. Okay, well, let's go back to calibration. We had the due date, the calibration date, and the and-on status lights. What was happening is it was creating a bottleneck for the information to load. You see how it's going kind of slow? So we didn't forget them. We just hid them temporarily so that you weren't super slowed down by this. We are working to add them back and get this performing at a faster pace so that you don't have these delays like this. So when I'm showing you this calibration page, you do want to see your cal date. You do want to see your due date. That's some of the most important things you want to see, right? And the ability to access the cert right here on the screen. So I just wanted to point out that you may not be seeing those right now. They will be coming back. They're temporarily hidden. Along with the and-on light, we left that off because it was kind of creating a slowdown as well. So having said that and shown you that, let's go back to our digital caliper here and add the calibration. Right up here is where you'll add, the only thing we're looking at today is calibration. So we can calibrate. You can do it from this tab here. You don't have to be on that tab. You can just hit it from wherever you are within that view. Here's a calibration screen, very similar to probably what you're used to. It's going to ask you the calibration date, and then it's going to calculate the next calibration date. So I am going to put in an earlier date because we're going to add more than one calibration here. So I am going to put in maybe March 13th, 2022. Here it already calculated based on my 12-month cycle. As found, this I'm going to make it simple. We're going to do intolerance and intolerance, and then we'll go through and walk through an out of tolerance entry. Calibrating supplier, you're going to select your calibrating supplier. This list is coming from the new ASL. It no longer comes from a list in Web QMS settings. So you'll want to have your calibration suppliers in the new ASL to have them show up here in this list. So I'm going to select calibration company. You can enter our costs. Okay, this is where you put, whoops, this is where you put your certificate. Yes, you can click this to have your file explorer come up, or you can actually just drag and drop it. I have one ready to go. So you're going to put your certificate there. If you need to delete it because you grabbed the wrong one, you have a trash can button there to delete it. Now, if you have any comments to add about this calibration as well, you'll add your comments. I don't really have any comments for this, but just to put something there, you'll say all is good and submit this. So simple as that. If you have a straightforward, clean calibration, you enter it just like that. And when we go back to the calibration tab, we'll now see here's our entry. There is the date it was done, all the information we put, the certificate. That was, of course, just a fake certificate, but that's the document I put, so it'll open up whatever your certificate is. We don't have any follow-up on this because it wasn't found out of tolerance, so it's real clean and it's complete. It's green. Your next cal due date now shows up above the table on the right side. So there's our next due date. Everything we put in is there. So let's go ahead and do another one now. Let's calibrate the same piece of equipment. So the year goes by, we're going to add another calibration for this. And now we're 3/13/23. Okay, so now it's calculating to the next one. In this case, we're going to say out of tolerance. So what happens when you're out of tolerance? And hopefully you ended up leaving it intolerance if it was able to be recalibrated. You'll still have to go ahead and pick your supplier here. I'm going to go ahead and just pick the same one. Yeah, cost. Anyway, anything, you just put your cost there if you choose to. In this case, I still want to add a certificate because I did get a calibration done, finding it out of tolerance. Okay, so here's where it's different now. This isn't a clean, simple one because we have to do something. Our equipment was found out of tolerance. But you can have none. You can do no follow-up. You will want to put some information here in this required containment section. As you know, our red asterisks, or you probably know by now, are always the required fields. I don't think I pointed that out. So none, put some kind of containment that you did here. You also have the option to just create actions or a single action. Maybe just something needs to be checked. assign those actions out. It's going to be very much like if you're familiar with NCR at all, you'll create actions, add an action here. You're going to assign it to the action taker. There's going to be a verifier. Once those 2 steps are done, boom, you're good to go again. That is going to be considered closed. You can also create corrective action. So this is where you're going to assign out root cause analysis. That's going to have its own actions within to take care of it that way. I'm going to go that route because we are going to create actions, which is very similar to creating actions here. So just know you have the option to create actions only, 1 or more actions and move on, or you can go with the RCA. So let's do this here, and I am going to, let's see, I'm going to assign it to Moreau user so I can show you some different views. So far, we haven't had to assign any tasks or anything to anybody else, so we haven't looked at any other views because there's not been any tasks. Everything's been clean so far. We're going to go ahead and assign this to Moreau info here. Okay, so there's those default dates that we had in the settings. I'm going to go ahead and just leave those as is. You want to have some kind of containment. So I'm going to type or paste in product inspected with this tool was quarantined. So that was the containment action that we took. So again, I'm just assigning this out for root cause analysis. So I'm going to submit that. And I do have some examples of emails. All the emails are very similar. So when something is assigned for each step, when it's the person's turn to take their action, they will get an email. So for now, the first one for this corrective action, they'll get something letting them know that there was a new corrective action for this asset. You've been assigned. It'll have the details and they can click. As we go through, we're going to assign actions. That person will get email. Verification has been assigned. So somebody's going to get an email about the verification. So I don't want to get too far ahead, but that's just some examples of the emails that will go out with this. So now this has been assigned. Now we assigned it to Moreau user. I do have some different views. I've been logged in as an admin. That's how I have access to add into the settings. If I go over here on a different browser, I'm now going to be logged in as, okay, this is not where, this one here. I am logged in here just as a user. So that's not the asset that I want to see. Let me bring this person in fresh. And I'm going to just search for the first few digits. I put AA. Okay, so for one thing, I'm logged in as a user. Here's that piece of equipment. But also, when you assign something to a user, we haven't looked at my tasks yet. I was going to cover it at the end, but everybody's going to have my tasks. So if something is assigned to a user, they'll go in my tasks. Anything assigned to them and outstanding is going to be on this list. So assets pending calibration or verification, pending action or corrective action, and then everything from there down is PMs and repairs, which we're not looking at. This one happens to be pending RCA. So this user, this is a regular user, they don't have any admin roles or anything. They can simply click here and it's going to take them to this AA015 piece of equipment to the detail view so that they can complete it. So they can access it that way. Or of course, they can go to the app itself like we've been doing, search for that piece of equipment if they're doing it at a later time. Also, there's a link in the email. They can use the link of the email and it's going to bring them back right here. Okay, so let's move through this. Here's the root cause analysis they're going to have to fill out. Again, they are going to do this. The containment's already there because that was put in by the person who assigned this out. Let's see, next we are going to, I'm not going to upload any attachments, but you can if you're doing the root cause analysis and you have any kind of attachment to go with it. The person is just going to enter what they came up with as the root cause here. This was an oversight. The tool was broken, not marked as such. Therefore, inspectors kept using it. So on whatever you're going to put, their operator was in a hurry, placed the caliper on his desk, and he forgot why it was there, and he put it back to use. Okay, so there's the root cause analysis. Actions, or a minimum of one action at least, is required. So the root cause analysis is entered. Now let's add action. We'll add a couple of quick actions here. So what do we want the first action to be? We are going to say inspect the quarantine product with a different caliper. We are going to assign that out to Moreau info. I'm just going to leave these due dates so we can go through this, but it's got your due dates. I'm going to assign this one to Moreau user. Okay, and we just create it. So there's one action. I'm gonna go ahead and create a second action just to show you that. The section action is going to be recall the product from the customers to conduct an inspection. For this one, I'm going to assign it to, I don't remember which order I did these in. I'm using the same one, so when I can show you the different browsers because I've already got them open. So I'm going to do this one as user here. Okay, create that, and I just left the dates the same in that case. All right, so let's go. That's all entered. You can see it here. We do need to submit it. If you need to make any last minute edits on those before you submit, go ahead and do that, but submit it. Now it's submitted. Those actions have been assigned out. So whoever they were assigned to one or more people, they will get their little email about having actions assigned for this. There's the details of it. Here's the actions that are outstanding. I am still in actually Moreau user's view. So let me see. Moreau user happens to be a tech, so that's why they were allowed to assign. Or the RCA was assigned to them, so that was all right. I'm on Moreau user, not to get confusing. The RCA was assigned to this employee, so that's what they just completed. Now I happen to assign some of the actions back to myself, if you want to call it that. Now if I can, or maybe the actions all went to Moreau Info. I have a Moreau Info browser. Let's look at Moreau Info quickly here. I think I may have assigned both actions to Moreau Info in this instance. So if I can come to the asset, or if I go to Moreau Info, here they are. Okay, so I did. Both actions got assigned to Moreau Info, which is fine because I was logged in as Moreau user. So this person needs to do both actions, then they'll go for verification. So far, Moreau Info needs to complete the actions. They can get there from their My Tasks or anywhere else that I've showed you. Actions are going to be here, and they have buttons for what they can complete. If only one had been assigned to Moreau Info, this would not be here. Moreau Info is a user. They're only going to be allowed to complete what is assigned to them. In this case, they were both assigned. So action one, we're going to fill in what we did here. I ran an inventory report of everything inspected with the caliber. Here's the information they found. We're not going to recall it. We sent a technician to those facilities to retest it. Okay, great. You can add any attachment there if you want to. I do happen to have an attachment for action one. So again, simple as drag and drop or click to browse, submit it. Okay, so Moreau Info has done their first action. Now they can come back to the actions and verification tab. The one they've done now has view details, excuse me. They can go ahead and do their second action now. When they open that, they can see what they're supposed to be doing here. They can enter their action comments. So let me put what we want to do here. Based on action one, we sent a technician to the facilities to retest everything, but one part was bad and we replaced it. Okay, great. So I'm not going to upload here. I'm just going to submit that. Now, both have been acted on. That was Moreau Info. Moreau Info is done. So now they only view details. They don't have a button to verify because it's not assigned to them. I'm going to go back to Moreau user, who I think is who got assigned the verification. So I'm refreshing my tasks for Moreau user. And we will see if they're there. I think I'm refreshing. Let me, maybe, am I staring right at them and missing them? Maybe I can't remember where I assigned them to. Hold on, I thought it's Moreau user. I'm just gonna do that. Let me go look from this main screen. So when you come to see the information this way, of course, you'll have to come to the calibration tab. It's good that we're looking at it here because when you go to calibration, you're just going to see this. And you see on this landing page, there was the original calibration we did, no car or actions. That was the clean one, everything in tolerance. When anybody else comes and looks here, now they see this one. Okay, there was the out of tolerance. You can see it's red. It does have CAR as a follow-up because that's what we selected. It's awaiting review of effectiveness. That's what it says here. So let's open it. I think it's still waiting. Well, it's awaiting verification and review of effectiveness. Here is the details of the actions and verification we entered. We can see that the actions have been done. It says actioned by Moreau Info. So these are assigned to Moreau user, which is who I am here. It should be in the My Tasks. It may have been there and maybe I was just missing it. Let me do this again. Just to check. There it is. It may have just needed a refresh. Both of them are there because I have two different items assigned to me for action verification. Again, you can navigate however you need to those. Verification is a simple step, so I am just going to click on one. Verification, I am going to approve this. You can see all the information that's happened so far and the attachments that were there. So if you need to review that. And then I'm going to say approve this. Great report and good work on the customer recall. I'm not going to add an attachment, but you can just to save time. On the second one, I'm going to go ahead and reject it. If you reject an action, it's just going to go back to that action taker. That action taker will get the email that we started to get ahead to. They'll get an email, actions rejected for an asset, and they'll get to redo that action. It'll go back to verification, and then it can move on. So if I just say reject and put a reason why, we will just say, please attach your results of the recall here. Okay, so it's getting rejected and it's going to go back to action. That person will get an email that it will be on their My Tasks. I'm not going to go back and do all that. View details, let me go back over because Moreau Info is who it would have gone back to. Let me refresh over here now. I'm back on the Moreau Info who did the original actions. We just got rejected. So now I have to complete my action again. Okay, so now when I open it, I have the information that it was rejected in addition to my email, so I already know. Please attach, there's the verification comments. Please attach the results of the recall. So I can say, okay, results are attached. I'm just going to add on here to the comment. Drag them in. Again, I'm not going to do that just to save time. Drag them in and submit. Now it's going to go back to verification, and this will be done, and it will move to review of effectiveness. So I'm done with everything that was assigned to me as a Moreau Info user. Let me get back over to our as an admin. Let's see, that is not the one, this one here. Okay, so everything has been done. Now we are ready for review of effectiveness. I don't know if this probably needs a refresh since it was just sitting here. Okay, so do we need to still verify that second action? Yes, we do. Okay, I'm going to complete the second verification now. We are going to approve it. Thank you for attachment. Okay. Now it is ready for review of effectiveness. So everything's done here. You can see in the columns that action and verified are done. Review of effectiveness now. I think I had assigned this to Moreau Info. So Moreau Info will get an email that this is ready for review of effectiveness. They will come in and enter something. I'm just going to enter it here from the admin screen. But whoever it is assigned to will have access to enter this stage here. They can approve it or reject it. I'm going to approve this one. Again, if it rejects, it just goes back. We will say now for review of effectiveness, it's been 3 months and we have not seen another incidence of a failed calibration. Okay. And you can add your attachment. That was just the note to add an attachment. I do have one. Again, you just drag it there and submit it. Once your review of effectiveness is done, okay, so everything's done there. Review of effectiveness. You can come back. Your attachments are always going to be there. If you had any attachments, each step of the way, see there's for your actions, there's your review of effectiveness. You have a history to see everything that has happened. everything from the finding being created, the assignments, the RCA, the actions, and review of effectiveness to where we are now. Let's go back. Now we are green. Review effectiveness was the last thing we had to do. So we are green. We are good to go here. This indication is not saying that you are not overdue. This indicator is for if this entry is complete. So this was for that previous year that ended 3/13/24. We are overdue, but this is complete. Everything, this calibration was added. The follow-up was done and everything is complete. So this is green. Now on the main landing page for calibration, when we go back and add those due dates and status lights, we're going to be red. Well, we'd be red if we hadn't finished this, but also due to the due date there. So these lines indicate, is everything done for this specific entry? So it won't be green, it'll be yellow or red until you get that complete. One more thing I want to show you is the in-house calibration before we move on to the KPIs and reports and other things there. Let me go to a different piece of equipment. I have a piece of equipment set up, so we're just going to look at an equipment that I've already added. So say you have a piece of equipment and you just want to, I have to hit back a couple of times. I'm just going to go. Sometimes if you're deep in the calibration, you have to hit back more than once. So I'm just going to go, you can always go back up here to the main landing page. And I do know that A00018, this gauge here, I've got it set up with in-house calibration. If I come over to this tab, you can see calibration is in-house, not sent out. So let me show you how to add your in-house calibration here. You'll put in your dates. It defaults to today. I'm going to leave it for that. And of course, based on your cycle, when is the new one? Hopefully everything is good on your in-house calibration. I'm going to leave them in tolerance. The system will create your certificate for you, as it did before. If you have a certificate, maybe you guys create your own certificates when you calibrate, you can upload. But if you just want to put the information here in the system, it will create a nice certificate. It's going to ask you to add what standards was used. So you'll pop this up and select the asset should be in your system for what was used for this. I'm going to say digital caliper. It's going to let you know for that digital caliper that you have in your asset list, its last and next due date. So for instance, if I pick air hoist, you'll see those are 2021 and 2022. I'm using this digital caliper. So it's got dates there. Is it traceable to NIST? You can say yes and add that. You can add multiple standards, add as many as you need there. Add any attachments you might have from doing your calibration and add your comments, of course. If you have any comments that are related to this, you may just say my calculations are attached, and I'm going to drag something over there. Micrometer these are calculations, may not be for the right piece of equipment, but yeah, so you do your in-house calibration just like that, which was all set up when we entered the asset. And here you go, the certificate is going to look like this, and it's going to have all your information here. So that is in-house calibration. If you use that, I'm going to go back out now and cover. We looked at my tasks for the most part. One thing we didn't look at for my task is every user has it, but every admin has an additional tab on it. So if I go here, I am logged back in as an admin. Admin has a tab that shows them everything outstanding, not just assigned to them. So admin has both. If I had anything assigned to me specifically, it'd be here. This is everything assigned waiting for anybody's action. For PMs, everything. There's nothing for calibration here right now. I think it's not picking it up, so we're working to get that fixed, but that's my tasks. It's very similar to other apps where the admin can see everything outstanding. Your reporting for this app, for calibration, you've got a couple of tabs, calibration coming due and calibration follow-up. This will probably be coming due and past due. We'll probably change the name of that. But calibration follow-up, that's for, of course, those ones that were found out of tolerance, and it will list everything that's outstanding for any kind of follow-up. You've got you can further filter these reports by departments, locations, types, your equipment type. So that's really all I have to show you for reports right now. Your KPIs, similar to other apps. I know we're right here at 4 o'clock, but you've got your KPIs page, total assets by location. You have them by department, by asset types, by status. We are working some of these, it just has too much information on this chart, so it's not rendering well. Again, you can print these, you can filter these, and these little blue boxes if you want to turn them on and off for printing. We're still working on the printing. It's a little difficult to get all the printing laid out just right, so we're kind of still working on that. But you got asset KPIs and you've got calibration KPIs, so similar thing here. And I think that's pretty much everything. If you're still here with me, we didn't really talk about the roles. I saved that for the end. Similar to all of our other applications, you can have asset admins. That's for people that are going to be entering and managing the equipment. Of course, they can add, edit, and delete if they're the admin for any location. They'll receive email notifications, requests. This is for the usage, so you can kind of disregard that right now, but they will have asset checkout, checkout assets, check-in assets. And of course, they have access to the settings for the app, for the assets area. Tech is going to be very similar. They cannot delete, and they're specific for a location. They will only be able to add or edit assets for their location, receive emails for their location. Calibration, admin, and tech, similar thing. They can add, edit, and delete if they're the admin for any location. If you're a tech, you can add and edit for your location. The admin can manipulate the settings, the tech cannot. Employee can view, and of course, employees can act on anything assigned to them. So they can view assets, calibration, they can view my tasks, reports, KPIs, and they receive emails when activities are assigned. Last slide, and on lights. These are all very simple. Green, everything's good and within due dates. Yellow is usually going to be coming due within 30 days if it's for your asset calibration or verification. Actions are outstanding but not overdue. Same with corrective actions, outstanding but not overdue. Red, of course, usually means past due. So calibration can be past due, actions can be past due, or corrective actions are past due. And I think that wraps it up for everything I had. Sorry, we went over a couple of minutes, but hopefully you guys got lots of information. If you have questions, let us know. I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer. I don't know if you had any parting words.
No, I think you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, we are looking for them in the chat. If not, this webinar will be available within the next week. And we look forward to hearing your feedback as we continue to work through some of these improvements.